Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and we've got a great show today. Podcast is brought to you by PickSix, the new fantasy game from DraftKings. Use code RWPicks for $50 in PickSix credits with a $5 deposit. With me today, I've got Eric Cross, Jesse Roach, Chris Welsh. You might know all these guys. Maybe you should if you listen to this show. And what we're going to do is a first-year player draft mock featuring just 2024 draftees. Really excited for this because I honestly have no idea what the kind of consensus is out there in terms of who people prefer in this class. So really excited. We're just going to be doing this, for dynasty leagues, not specifying OBP or average or anything like that, but just, think loosely OBP, I guess. But really excited. And we've set the draft order. And Chris Welsh is on the clock with the first pick.
How did I get so lucky? So this is funny because I'm actually really curious of the same thing because I've been out there saying two things. I've been saying these two guys, Travis Bazzana and Charlie Condon, they will be the back and forth one or two. And I said that and I thought there's going to be a whole lot of this person likes this guy, this guy. I don't know. I'm a little afraid I might maybe be the only one. I'm going to start this off with Travis Bazzana. That's going to be my pick. And the reason I've thought this is when you look at a lot of the underlying stuff from Travis Bazzana, you can get pretty excited. In college, he had a 41% barrel rate in D1 baseball. That was the best, especially best among all of the first round picks. 96 average exit velocity, ridiculous, 13% chase rate. And a decent launch angle as well. So, you have this guy, 28 homers, 16 stolen bases. It's 5 tools. He gets on base. He doesn't chase. He makes great contact. He's got a really nice swing that has an uppercut approach. So he can keep going to power. Maybe there's some Pac-12 stuff in there, but I think the floor is so high with a ceiling that's really high. I think Travis Bazzana deserves to be in that. Plus, second base, we're talking OBP here, but I keep saying this, guys, and I'm like, it's going to be one of the two. Everybody I talk to keeps saying Charlie Condon because of the obvious things of Colorado. So I don't think talking about the pick is necessarily bad here because we know where we're at. But I don't know if anybody else is with me on Travis Bazzana being number one. That is my pick, though.
Brett Sayre is. I will tell you that much. At Baseball Prospectus, I personally am in on Condon at 1, given what you just said. He landed with Colorado. It's very forgiving place to hit for someone who may have average concerns. And I'm not going to get too much into Condon because I imagine he'll be selected soon. But Eric is super high on Bazzana for the vast majority of the reasons you stated. I actually think in OBP, I think he gets a boost. He's certainly one of the more disciplined players in this class. And I think he'll have a big jump and boost in OBP formats. He gives me Jose Ramirez feels, I think maybe just because of the landing spot. I think the lift and pull approach, the contact ability, the power that I think will play up in games. I think comping anyone to Jose Ramirez is a dangerous game. I don't think he's going to steal as many bases. He only stole 16 this year, but I think it's a comp that is easy to see. And that's what comps are. They're kind of lazy.
But, yep, number 2 is going to be Charlie Condon here. And I think it's a clear-cut top 2. You can go Bazzana. I have Condon number 1 in my own rankings. Don't fault anybody for going Bazzana. Obviously, he provides more speed than Condon will. Condon's probably got to give you, 5, 6 a year, something like that. And Bazzana could be, 15, 20, even more. So if you want the more well-rounded profile, go Travis Bazzana, obviously. More, fantasy-friendly all-around profile at the second base position, which is kind of, going back down lately. But, yeah, Condon, we had a feeling it was going to be a great landing spot because, early rumors were, Wetherholt going to Cleveland 1. Then it shifted to Bazzana in the last 48 hours before draft day. But I was like, all right, 2 is Cincinnati and 3 is Colorado. So kind of had a feeling he'd land in one of those 2 spots unless those 2 orgs just completely whiffed on this draft. But, yeah, Condon in Colorado is just really, really exciting. That blend of, I think he has the best blend of hit and power, or a combination, I should say, of hit and power in the entire draft class. And maybe that we've seen in the last few years. It's right up there with, Langford's last year and potential, middle of the order stud. In Colorado, you could literally dream of 40 home runs from Charlie Condon. He had 37 last year in 60 games, 25 and 56 the year before that. More walks than strikeouts. 433, 556, 1,009 slug. It's an OPS of 1565. I mean, the approach is there. Maybe a little bit of chase, sure. But he's a bigger guy that kind of comes with the territory sometimes. He's 6'6", but I think he's gonna hit for high average. Obviously, you get that bad bit boost from Coors Field with all that power, middle of the order thumper. So even if he doesn't provide, well in all 5 categories like Bazzana could, I think he could be an absolute stud in 3 and pretty solid in the batting average.
I just want to add in, this is the tricky thing though. It's the comments right there where you go, it's 1 and 2. Actually, I feel like I'm the only one. Like every single person continuously, James, I'm dying to know, because I expect it's going to be Condon here, that it is Condon across the board. So I think we're all it's kind of that tier conversation. I'm really picky about tiers, and people will put like, oh, all these guys are in, but like if I don't feel I would ever take this guy down here above this guy, they don't belong in a tier. So I get really picky about it, that I'm not so sure. Like we all like Bazzana in that range, but I'm starting to wonder maybe there's only going to be a small little contingency of us that are going to be in on Bazzana, even though we feel he's in that same general range.
I think it's a 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's 3-1 with Welsh being the only one who would have taken Bazzana first. But I'm curious, Eric and Jesse, did the Rockies thing move you over to Condon, or would you have taken Condon ahead of Bazzana, like if neither of them end up with the Rockies?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
I still had Condon 1 before the draft, so. But again, I agree. It's 1A, 1B. I mean, again, you can't go wrong either way. Bazzana, again, more well-done profile, gives you speed, second base. Those are alluring too.
Yeah.
The Rockies actually have done a decent job of developing bats
Yeah.
over time, and certainly lately. I mean, we've seen Brendan Doyle have a breakout year this year. Ezekiel Tovar's kind of coming into his own. They can develop bats, and the Con doesn't really need much in terms of development anyway. And where there are concerns with swing and miss, particularly on like breaking balls and off speed, he does mash fastballs. I'm not concerned about him hitting velocity, and breaking balls and off speed are just not as effective in high altitude. I think he's going to just completely destroy pitchers at home. I think the upside's just through the roof. I think it's, we hear a lot of comps to like Chris Bryant because of like size, college performance, the fact he plays third base. I can see it in a way. I think that there's more. It's crazy to say this about comparing him to an MVP, but I think there's legitimately more upside here with Condon because of the power. There's really huge power here. Setting aside the college data, we're dealing with BB Court bats. His 90th percentile exit velocity in college was 112 miles an hour. I think typically I would say 3 to 4 mile an hour difference between what you'd see in college and what you'll see with Wood. Even if that's true, I mean, we're talking about 108, 109, 90th with Wood. I think that's very possible. I think that we are seeing plus power that will play very well in Coors, and the average, Coors really boosts average, which is something to be really excited about with Condon. They're both great picks. I think it's just this draft class is underrated for fantasy because all the real life and analysts are poo-pooing it because there is a dearth of like shortstops and center fielders that don't have massive issues, but for fantasy, I don't really care if they're playing second base. I don't really care too much if it's a potential maybe has to move to first base profile at third base. I don't care. If they hit for me, I am happy. And I think we'll be happy with these guys.
So with the first pick, Chris Welsh takes Travis Bazzana of the Guardians. With the second pick, Eric Cross took Charlie Condon of the Rockies. I'm picking third. I'm going to take JJ Wetherholt of the Cardinals. I actually have, I would say I have like Condon in his own tier barely, and then I have Bazzana and Wetherholt in the same tier. And I had Wetherholt ahead of Bazzana before the draft, but it was so close that just Bazzana going first. I think that matters a little bit, especially when the other guy goes seventh. But what I like about Wetherholt is I think he's a better overall athlete than Bazzana. I think there's a chance that he could play shortstop. I don't think it's likely, but I think there's only one position for Bazzana. And My only two holdups on Bazzana are just the Pac-12, I think, is a worse conference for pitching than the rest of the conferences that the top guys are coming from. And then I also think, taking a second baseman out of college, it's a pretty big leap. I mean, it's the first time a second baseman's ever gone first overall. So that's just my only hold up there. But Wetherholt is my clear number 3 guy. I am curious if anyone else agrees. We don't need to get into the next options. I'm sure Jesse will cover that at the turn here, but did anyone else have Wetherholt third on their board?
No,
I did.
You did, Jesse?
I have him 3-4 with another guy, and I think if I wasn't concerned a little bit about his durability long term, and maybe I'm overthinking that, that's very possible. But I think for talent, he'd be number 3 for me.
Yeah, the durability is my biggest concern with Wetherholt. Just multiple muscle injuries on his track record, and that's something that I think it's worth bringing up because that's obviously gets annoying really fast when a guy develops a habit of missing 30 games a year.
Jordan Lawler is becoming that guy lately.
Sure. Okay, Jesse, take us to the turn. What do you got?
All right. Well, the turn here at 4. I have 4. I think it's really a pivot point in this draft class. For me, at least, I think that there's a lot of ways in which you can kind of tackle this class from this point. I'm going to go with the player I like the most. The player I think is the easiest fit here, and that's Chase Burns. It's a pitching prospect. Pitching prospects are dangerous, and he was selected 2nd overall by the Cincinnati Reds. Obviously, Great American Ballpark is not a favorable place for pitchers generally, but it hasn't really stopped pitchers from putting together really strong fantasy seasons. Obviously, we're seeing what Hunter Green is doing this year. We've seen what Luis Castillo has done in the past. With Chase Burns, we're talking about an arm that has truly electric stuff. I would argue that his stuff may be even better than Paul Skeens. Now, that said, he does not have Paul Skeens' command, so it's a very different type of profile. I think that if you're looking at his stuff from just a fastball slider perspective, I think if you're looking at the shapes and the velocities, it does comp somewhat similarly to Dylan Cease in a lot of ways. What he has that Dylan Cease does not have, though, are viable 3rd and 4th pitches that I think will be successful Major League offerings in his curveball and changeup. Meanwhile, his command is also better than Dylan Cease's command. So I think it's sort of like a Dylan Cease 2.0, who I am all about in fantasy. He was in Wake Forest's pitching lab, and he struck out the entire world, 190 strikeouts last year in D1. I think it's going to be a huge strikeout arm. He's going to give you great ratios. And again, the fastball slider, I think they conceivably are plus offerings. At the very least, they're plus or better. And, 2 other viable offerings, solid command. I think he'll move very quickly. I think the Reds are going to be positioned to be competitive next year for sure. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see Chase Burns have a major league impact next year. Not like Paul Skeens. I think it's dangerous to compare people to Paul Skeens, but I think he could have a very, fantasy relevant season. And then 5. I guess one last thing I'll talk about with Chase Burns. I legitimately, before draft and even now, think there is a legit gap between Hagen Smith and Chase Burns. Just because Hagen Smith's left-handed, that really gives him an edge for real-life purposes. But I really don't think the stuff compares. I don't think the command compares. And Hagen Smith also has Tommy John on his record. So there's my little 2-piece of why Chase Burns is superior to Hagen Smith. So number 5. All right, so 5, I think I'm going to go out on a limb and take another high-risk player, going with a pitching prospect and now a prep. I'm going to take Konnor Griffin. Shortstop / center fielder, selected 9th overall by Pittsburgh Pirates. Konnor Griffin is, I think, one of the sexiest from a fantasy perspective in terms of his ceiling in this entire class. It's massive power and speed. I guess for context, for speed, and again, we're talking about high school. He stole 87 bases last year, this spring in high school. Truly remarkable speed, and he is an incredibly aggressive base runner. He's a former 3-sport athlete, one of the best athletes in this class. He projects to develop plus power to go along with that huge speed. The outstanding question is really a hit tool based question. And we've ran into this trap before with players like Elijah Green and Joe Adele. And I think because of that, we may see Konnor Griffin's stock depressed in fantasy drafts, where in prior years he may have been talked about pretty consistently at like 3 or 4 in this class. I really think the power speed here is so enticing, and there's enough concerns I have with others that you could select at this point that I'm willing to take that risk, the little added risk here with his hit tool.
All right. Well, before I head to a quick break, I just want to ask Eric and Welsh, where do you guys sort of have Chase, or whoever your top pitcher is, where do you have them ranked among this class for fantasy? I'll start with you, Welsh.
I have Burns as number 1. I'm like Jesse. I actually have him at 4, so he took him at my value. I also have him a tier different than Hagen Smith. And, through the whole process, like the eye test to me was always Chase Burns. One thing I want to point out, like, Lance Browzdowski did just a great job. If you guys haven't seen it, go and watch the breakdown video, because one thing, and Lance is great. There's so much great information on it. If you want, some of the data, and like Burns has like mind-boggling stuff, 20 IVB, which he even noted the college baseball might lower the IVB, 98 mile per hour fastball. The stuff to me is not in question. But one of the things that really stood out about Hagen Smith was the amount of success Hagen Smith had on in-zone swing and miss. And that's something I think that is going to be more difficult and harder to predict as he goes through major league levels into the actual majors. Having a lot of your success dictated on in-zone misses for that type of fastball when Chase Burns is better. I don't know. He's a 2-pitch pitcher. Hagen Smith is, except righties where he goes the changeup. I just think they're a tier different. Hagen Smith White Sox been doing great. I think like the way they've been developing, maybe they get another pitch in there, and he might be able to continue that process and be a really great pitcher. But I like the stuff of Chase Burns. I have him at 4. I have a gap and a tier different between them, so I'm with Jesse on that one.
And I will note,
Eric, what about you? Just quickly.
Yeah, I have Burns at 7. I moved him down one spot. The one concern I have with Burns is going to Cincinnati. He did give up a few home runs last year. He gave up 14 home runs. Obviously, Cincinnati not a great pitcher's park, so that's my one concern. But I rank him higher. So I have Hagen Smith at 11. So a little bit of a difference there, just because of the more well-rounded arsenal for Burns. That's why I have him higher.
It's worth knowing Wake is a bandbox. So he pitched in a bandbox in college. I will note that Brett Sayre did not have Burns in his top 10. I don't have either guy in my top 10, and that's why I just wanted to get a sense of whether I was with you guys or apart from you guys. And it sounds like I'm the only one that didn't have either pitcher in my top 10. So that's interesting. I just think there's reliever risk with both guys. It just looks that way to me in the deliveries. The walk rates are okay, but I don't see either of these guys really being close to Paul Skeens, just because of how good Skeens was with the command. I think that's just a huge mark in his favor. But that's interesting that there is a multiple experts that would take one of these guys in the top 5, and multiple experts that wouldn't take either in the top 10. So it's a divisive group right here. Except for a pivot point.
And if anyone is watching on YouTube, would really appreciate a subscription and a like. Please do that. That helps us out. Did you ever play the over-under game with your friends? Think I could eat that slice of pizza in under 30 seconds, or I know I'll take you over a minute to down that 2-liter. If you have, then you're going to love PickSix, the new fantasy game from DraftKings. Here's how to play during baseball season. Pick between 2 and 6 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like runs, hits, strikeouts, and more. Track your picks and play against others for a shot to win huge cash prizes. That's all there is to it. Download the new DraftKings PickSix app and use code RWPicks. New customers play $5 and get 50 in PickSix credits. That's code RWPicks for new customers to play $5 and get 50 in PickSix credits. Only on DraftKings PickSix. The crown is yours. 1 per customer, non-withdrawable PickSix credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 18 plus in most eligible states. Not available in all states, including New York and Connecticut. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos. Can certain weather conditions lead to more home runs? The atmosphere can affect how far a baseball flies by 20%. Home run forecast measures the weather conditions at a ballpark to tell us if the atmosphere is good or bad for ball flight during a game. An index value that rates the air is created for each game and ballpark and is displayed on a scale from 1 to 10. Home Run Forecast premium site offers index values by the hour for each game, 24-hour forecasts, wind direction and speed, and even whether the roof will be open at certain stadiums. Home Run Forecast is offering a special for the start of the baseball season. You can get access to the premium site for the entire season for only $28, a savings of nearly 30%. Go to homerunforecast.com/RotoWire now to sign up. Okay, guys, we're back. And yeah, sorry about, I know we've all got a lot to say on these guys, but just want to make sure we can try to get all 24 picks in here. All right, so I'm back up, picking sixth. Travis Bazzana, Charlie Condon, JJ Wetherholt, Chase Burns, and Konnor Griffin are off the board. I will take Jac Caglianone of the Royals now by way of Florida. And I'll just I don't think this is a good first-year player draft class, personally, at least among the draftees. And I'm not sure that Caglianone's going to hit enough to be an everyday player, but I think the ceiling is high enough that I'm willing to roll the dice at this point. Obviously, the chase rate is the big thing everyone talks about with him. The gap in terms of how low the strikeout rate was, how high the chase rate was with Cags is certainly something to keep an eye on. And then just the recent, not even very recent, but kind of last 20 years or so, track record of college first baseman is very poor. I think there's a chance, or I think there might be a bit of upside with Caglianone to maybe buck that trend just because he was working as a two-way guy up until now. But I'm taking a guy right here that I'm not confident in hitting enough. But I think he has 40 homer upside if he does hit enough. So we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of how I view the class, is that I'm already taking a guy I don't really believe fully in here. But that's my number 6 pick.
Hence my comment on Konnor Griffin.
Right. Yeah. I think Griffin and Caglianone are similar options for the same reason. Just you're taking a shot, and I think that's totally fine in first-year player drafts. This is your only chance to get guys with these types of tools. But there's risk here, and the bust rate. When I was talking with Jim Callis about a week ago, he did some research to answer someone's question about the success rate of college first basemen. And I think it's from the past 20 years, CJ Cron has the highest WAR of any college first baseman taken in the first round. So
two-way player too, by the way. That's a fun one. Another two-way player. I just want to say I agree with you that I don't like the class. I do like Caglianone though, because you got to take calculated risks, and just like a little additioner to add on, because the chase rate is a massive problem. He also had a really bad ground ball rate. It was like 44% in college, but 91.8% contact percentage in the zone. And that was better than Condon. That was better than Bazzana. That was better than a lot of these guys. Also had a better out of zone contact percentage than Charlie Condon. And he's got 120 max EV he put up. I think the ground balls and stuff are a problem, but like when he does get the bat in the zone, he just murders stuff. But it might be, I don't know. He's like, if he were in Colorado, he would be a 240 hitter with 40 homers and you'd be more excited. But I don't know. I like Cags, but I agree. This class in general, like we're about to leave the territory of really liking guys.
I think we underrate players like this in terms of their ability to hit for average. I mean, I think he has he has a lot of similarities with players like Salvador Perez and Nick Castellanos. Big power. There's some swing and miss there, but there's enough contact, and they swing at everything that they're actually going to give you some average. The OBP will suffer, and in OBP leagues, I do think Cags gets knocked. But I mean, I think I wouldn't be shocked if he's like a 260 hitter. Wouldn't be shocked. Maybe with a 300 OBP, but he's a fun one. I'm so fascinated to see how his development will go.
All right, Eric, you are up with the 7th pick.
All right, made my decision a little easier here. I'm going to go to my own Boston Red Sox and go with Braden Montgomery. A guy that fell to the Sox at 12 in the draft, had that ankle injury late in the season. Probably makes it so they don't have him debut till next year. But I love the bat. I was really hoping he'd fall to my Red Sox, and he did. And another guy, kind of like my first pick, that isn't going to provide a ton of speed, though. I think he does have sneaky athleticism. So maybe a guy that flirts with 10 steals early in his career. That'd probably be the max, though. But you're going to draft him for the bat. He's an above-average hitter, plus or better power, switch hitter. I think he's really going to do wonders in Fenway Park. Guy that could, probably hit 270 plus, 30 plus home runs, and again, maybe 5 to 10 steals annually as well. And I know it doesn't matter, but he's a phenomenal, a right fielder, a good defensive outfielder, cannon for an arm. He'll fit perfectly in right field in Fenway. But yeah, the bat is, I think, one of the better bats overall in this draft class. One of the best combinations of ceiling and floor. And again, I think if he didn't, break his ankle, probably maybe be taking a couple spots higher in the draft and probably in FYPDs. So I think he's a guy that you can probably get in this 6 to 9 or 10 range in your FYPDs, and I would be more than happy with that. I think the bat is legit, and I think he's being slept on a little bit. So I'll happily take him here at 7.
He was next on my board too, so it's a good pick.
It'll be interesting to see if he drops the right-hand swing. I think, he also used to be a two-way player, so he still has a lot to potentially untap. I am concerned about swing and miss, but again, you never know what will happen. I think there's a lot of power there.
All right, Welsh, you're at the 8-9 turn.
Yeah, this will be easy for me. These would be right off of my board. Sometimes we like to play around and move around, but I'll just go right off my board. First up, I'm going to take Bryce Rainer, high school bat. The debate between Konnor Griffin and him definitely is like a kind of a constant. Before I had even read reports on him, I was like, boy, this dude looks like Corey Seager. And then every report on the planet says he is a Corey Seager comp. And the reason 6'4", 200 plus pounds. He also has a similar approach where he keeps his hands back, kind of backloads, is going to tap into some big hard hit stuff. In high school, hit over 500. Homers are still coming, hit 4 homers, but also stole 16 bases in 33 games. That's not like Konnor Griffin, who stole 87, but it's nothing to balk at. Also had double the walks and strikeouts if you care about high school. But I think the sky's the limit with Bryce Rainer. Big shortstop like that are pretty exciting. So I've got him right in the middle. This is right at value. I've got him at 7, and I'm going to follow him up with the A's first baseman, Nick Kurtz, who's just an OBP monster. He led Division I baseball in walk percentage, 28%, which is absolutely absurd when he did last year. Some other fun notes. He had a 13% chase rate. That's the same chase rate as Bazzana and JJ Wetherholt. And that was one of the lowest, actually, kind of in general. 85% contact rate against 92 or higher velo. So just high fastball stuff. He had a great contact rate, and he had really good hard hit numbers. 110 or 111 90th percentile EV, a 115 max, and he had a 357 slash in college. So Nick Kurtz, Bryce Rainer, I'm super stoked to get both of those guys right off my board, and I will flip it back to, who does it go to? It goes to Eric.
It was to me, yes. Pick what's this? The last pick of the top 10 right here, and yes. I think this is where it really opens up. I mean, you literally could go a million different ways here. This might be a little high, but I'm really enamored with the skill set here. I'm going with Theo Gillen, shortstop, outfield prospect. Went to the Tampa Bay Rays in the first round. Good amount of helium about him right now, and I'm definitely sipping the Kool-Aid for sure. I mean, the one knock on him is that there's been some injuries with him in high school already. So that is, a bit of a red flag for sure. We talked about that earlier with JJ Wetherholt. Same thing here with Theo Gillen. But the all-around offensive profile is really good. And it's not a profile where he wows you in any one area. It's not massive power. It's not elite speed. But this could be a guy that just does everything well across the board and wind up as a 55 or 60 grade in hit power and speed. Not really sure where he ends up in terms of on the field, because he's not the greatest defender. He could outgrow the middle infield, maybe with some center field, corner outfield. So I'm not really sure where he ends up with Tampa Bay. We'll see how they handle him moving forward. But regardless of where he does end up, again, the well-rounded offensive profile, guy that could probably hit for a guy. He shows a good feel for hit. Obviously there's a little bit of chase in there, but nothing that is like alarming to me at this point in time. And if he can stay healthy, I mean, there's that potential to go 20 plus annually. So I will take Gillen here at 10 because he's the one I like the most out of this massive cluster from like 9 to really 16 or so in my rankings.
Yeah, I would have taken Gillen if he'd still been there at 11. I think he's got the best hit tool from the prep side of things in this draft. His arm is like I was talking to Dustin McComas, who does like some scouting in Texas, and he was saying it's like a 30 arm right now, in part because of the surgery, and there's also like a yips thing going on with him. And they announced him as an outfielder, so I would guess that they're going to probably try to turn him into a center fielder and then just throw him in left if that doesn't work out. But love the bat with Gillen there.
For sure.
Okay, so over to me here for the 11th pick. I'm going to go with Ryan Waldschmidt of the Diamondbacks. He is by far the latest pick that any of us have selected. He was the pick that the Diamondbacks got for Corbin Carroll winning Rookie of the Year, pick 31 in the draft. And that was a surprise to me that he fell that far, but I do think a lot of teams viewed him as a strict left fielder. And so this is a guy that I think in Waldschmidt is much more valuable in fantasy than in real life because of the defensive concerns. But I think he's at least an above average runner, maybe even a plus runner. So I wouldn't completely rule out him turning into a fine left fielder. And the Diamondbacks, as one of my subscribers pointed out, have done a good job turning guys like Lourdes Gurriel and David Peralta into solid left fielders. So I think he went to a pretty good home. And I just think Waldschmidt's impact potential offensively is the best on the board here. He's just really explosive with the swing. He makes really good swing decisions. He makes good contact. He's a good runner. So I love Waldschmidt. I was surprised to see him fall as far as he did on draft night, but I think he's a top 10 guy for first year player drafts, at least based on the info I have.
That is a Brett Sayer stand too. He wanted him at 6.
I would have had Waldschmidt ranked 4 or 5 spots higher if he'd come off the board where I kind of thought he should hit.
I really think Welsh is on here, so Chris is on here. We'll talk Diamondbacks briefly. I loved what they did there, and we'll get to the other one eventually, but I think those were just such great picks. Big fan of what Diamondbacks generally did with this draft class. All right, I have 2 picks here. My first pick is going to be Cam Smith, third base prospect for the Chicago Cubs. He's selected 14th overall. One thing we know about Cam Smith is that we know he can hit with wood. He mashed at the Cape. He hit 347, 406, 575 with 6 home runs. And he really took that production into a further breakout season this year with Florida State. There's huge power here. His 90th percentile exit velocity was 111 miles an hour this year. There's a lot of bat-to-ball ability too. He makes a ton of zone contact on both fastballs and breaking balls. I really, really, really buy the hit power combination here with Cam Smith. The big issue with Cam Smith is he's not really built in the modern way, in that he's not a pull and lift hitter. I think it's something that can be developed. I do think he's sort of a hit over power right now. So I do wonder how much power he will get to ultimately without tweaks to his approach and swing. But I really do think there's huge upside. And I think that the floor is very high as well. Even if he doesn't maybe unlock the power, I think the hit's going to be there. So I think there's a chance he could be like a 280 hitter that hits around 20 home runs, or he could be a lot more. And I'm kind of taking him here hoping for that more, because I do think that there is a lot more here in the tank for Cam Smith. Big fan of him and really love the selection of him at 14 for the Cubs. The next pick I will make is a player that I touched on earlier, and I'm actually a little surprised that he fell all the way to me, and it's Hagen Smith. I'll take both the arms. Give them to me. Give me all the pitchers. They will break for me, but look, we've seen what the White Sox have recently done with Garrett Crochet. Hagen Smith is basically cut from the same cloth, with a big fastball slider combo. There's enough command here that I think that we can develop it. There is concern in many ways, similar concern we would have with Crochet. This is an arm that he underwent Tommy John surgery in the past. So he already has one on his record. That does add legitimate risk. And I think from a fantasy perspective, it's something we very much have to consider. 2 Tommy Johns, there's not a long list of pitchers that have truly recovered and performed after a second Tommy John surgery. So because he already has one, I think it is something we have to ding him for. I do just think the stuff's huge. I think he'll miss a lot of bats. I don't think he's going to need a third pitch personally. I think those 2 pitches will be enough for him to kind of cut through lineups. I do question, though, about the durability. I question about the risk. I question, maybe with those just 2 pitches, maybe he's going to be a 5-inning arm. There are concerns here with Hagen Smith that I don't see with Chase Burns. But at this point, again, we're all taking players with lots of risk in my mind, or more limited upside than we'd want to try and take a gamble on in Dynasty. So at this point, I'm willing to take the gamble on risk with the massive pitching upside that I think Hagen Smith brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that you got to just chase upside here in the first, especially in the first 10 to 15 picks, because I think even in the draft, a lot of guys that are supposed to be safe can still bust. So, I think
Jacob Berry, right?
all these guys, whether I think even at the very top have some level of risk. So I like chasing upside here. And with Cam Smith, I as you were saying that, or kind of breaking down the fact that he puts the ball on the ground too much, I kind of thought of prospect Eric Hosmer for a second there, because I like Cam Smith a lot too, and I think he's just going to be really tantalizing for years, maybe, even if he still struggles to get the ground ball rate down, just because he has so much potential if he can learn to get the ball in the air a bit more.
His air pull percentage was way too low. It needs to be way higher.
He's very into, I've heard some interviews with him, and he's really into hitting the ball the other way, which it's a nice thing to do in batting practice and show that you can do it. But, I hope the Cubs kind of get him to embrace pulling the ball a bit more here now that he's in pro ball. Okay, so I'm up here with the 14th pick. I'm going to take Christian Moore of the Angels. Obviously was a hero en route to Tennessee, winning the College World Series, had just a ridiculous junior season. It's kind of, it's power over hit, a little bit of speed. I think he might be the first or among the first of the guys we've talked about to get to the big leagues just because of the team that drafted him.
He actually just got called up. You didn't hear?
Yeah. They actually just took the flight straight from Arlington straight to the Angels.
Yeah. Like most guys go to the big league stadium to hit like a round of BP and like talk to the reporters. He's just there to stay.
He's in the lineup. He's in the lineup on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Christian Moore, power hitting second baseman. Maybe they try him in the outfield, but I think just going with a Zach Neto, Christian Moore, middle of the infield, that's pretty fun. I think there's a chance he's like a 250, 255 guy. It's like 25 homers, room for more upside than that, but I think that's like a realistic ceiling. Okay. Now we move on to Eric for the 15th pick.
I'm going to go to Wake Forest and go Seaver King. I mean, King has a wide variance of outcomes here, but as you were alluding to, James, like chasing the upside here Seaver King absolutely has the upside. He's a phenomenal athlete, and the stock did fall a little bit this year. You look at, preseason, he was kind of being talked about as like a top 6, 7, 8 pick, and then, he fell a little bit, but phenomenal, all around tools. There's obviously some hit tool concerns, a little too much swing and miss in the profile, which is the red flag right now, but it's a guy that is a top-notch athlete, easy plus, maybe even double plus runner, above average to plus power. I think he might be able to add a little bit more, not a ton more production on the frame, but it could be a guy that's plus power, plus or better speed. And if you can get the hit tool kind of figured out here, at least to be, a 250, 255 hit or something like that, I think this could be a really fun fantasy profile. Another one, we don't really know if he's going to be shortstop, he's going to be an outfielder. I believe he was announced as an outfielder. So obviously they got CJ Abrams at shortstop there in Washington. So probably is going to be outfield, but I think it could be a really fun profile, maybe a little bit lower on the average side, but that can come with 20 home runs, 25 steals, something like that. You won't be too upset if he's hitting 250 or something like that, which isn't even terrible in today's game. So a little bit of risk here, but I mean, as we've talked about, there's a lot of risk with a lot of these guys. There's very few safe profiles, even in these top 15 to 20 or so. So I'll chase the upside here and go Seaver King.
King has very similar profile offensively to Cam Smith. Obviously brings speed, but he's way more aggressive than Smith, but he has very similar, ground ball, doesn't pull in the air as much as you want to see for someone with that type of power. I think he's super fun. I'm a Nationals fan and Orioles fan, so I really want to see Kings succeed. Imagine King on that roster with James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Brady House. It will and of course CJ Abrams. It will be really fun in a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think they'll just take advantage of his ability to play all over, and he might even be kind of like a Tommy Edman type of guy where he's playing a different position depending on the year.
Yeah, could be.
All right, Chris, over to you for a couple.
All right. Well, we could all read the room where I'm going to go with one of them because he's top 15 on my list. He was alluded to. I was actually surprised. I'm surprised, but also not surprised that Waldschmidt went ahead, but I have the other Diamondback. I have Slade Caldwell inside my top 15, but Waldschmidt much further along. So there's also a proximity factor to it. There could be some questions about Slade Caldwell's maybe future projection on the power, but he is an advanced hitter, kind of a compact guy, kind of has this, he's almost a mixture between Alek Thomas and Corbin Carroll in some ways where, Corbin obviously was able to optimize launch angle and barreling to at least last season. He did not yet this year. He was able to do that last year to go 20 plus homers. We haven't seen that with Alek, but we've seen some good hard hit numbers. Slade, I think, is a nice combination of those. He might be a doubles hitter early on, but he's going to make a ton of contact, got great bat speed. He can run, and we know the Diamondbacks like to run. I think, I don't want to say this is like, James, when you and I years and years ago were talking about Corbin Carroll, because I think there's something a little bit different, but it's shades of that. He has some of that profile. He's a much bigger upper body guy. He doesn't have that same body projection as Corbin Carroll does. So it's kind of hard to maybe be like, he's going to steal 50 bases, but I think there's a legitimate I disagree about the Seaver King thing. I don't know if we're ever going to see him hit 20, massive ground ball rate. He does get hyper aggressive. He kind of reminds me of Ketel Marte, where he has those really high max EVs where Ketel would do years ago, where it was 118, but then his average EV would be 88. Seaver's was 93, and I wonder if that'll translate to 88. But I just don't know if a college bat with a 4% launch angle, lower barrel rate than Cam Smith will ever generate bigger power. But I feel really confident that Slade Caldwell, and again, I'm going to say Seaver King's a great pick. He's going to probably be the speed guy here, and this is fantasy. Slade might be the guy that can play both angles of that. So I really like Slade. I got Slade over Waldschmidt. He's top 15. And I'm going to mess around with my second pick here a little bit, just with this cast and crew here. This is still a guy I have in the first round, but I have two other guys that are sneaking around. I'm going to go with maybe the opposite of Slade Caldwell. I'm going to go with James Tibbs, who I don't think gives enough credit because of athleticism. Joe Doyle was on my show, and this has not gotten out of my brain, and I wish it would. He had said there was a comp of Cole Calhoun on James Tibbs, and that doesn't get anybody excited, but you kind of see that in his swing. Where the things you can be excited is he's an advanced hitter, a really low chase rate, 18% chase rate in college this past year. Solid barrel numbers, a 15-degree launch angle, higher walk than strikeout percentage, almost a 4.58 slash he put up. I mean, he gets the ball in the air, he attacks it. He actually stole some bases in college. I don't think that's going to happen in the majors, but I do think this is a guy that can generate a high batting average, solid home run numbers, can be a middle of the order guy if that bat continues to develop. Athleticism is a little bit of a worry, but I just think there's a lot of like offensive bat upside with Tibbs. So I'm going to go again, kind of two very different players, a college bat in James Tibbs and Slade Caldwell for, I think, some of the best upside of 5 tools.
Yeah. I like the Caldwell pick, especially. And I agree with what Jesse said earlier about the Diamondbacks. I thought they just killed it. Obviously if I took the 31st pick, 11th overall, I would definitely think they killed it. But were you how excited were you on draft night, Chris?
I was really excited. I mean, like I was texting. So I was actually I meant to do my own stream, but I ended up being on like CBS Sports HQ the whole time. And I'm like breaking down all these guys. I'm like, yeah, this is fun, blah, 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 Bazzana. And then I'm texting with Bogman and I'm like, we want Slade Caldwell. And I'm like, just look, because I had Slade Caldwell like top 15 pre-draft. And I'm like, just wait, this will be awesome. And then he goes, but I was live on air and I couldn't react to it. I was really excited about it. And I was shocked we got Waldschmidt. I'll be honest with you. The only other thing I wish we had done, but I think it was a signability issue, was with that last pick. I would have really liked to see them go with like Wyatt Sanford was still sitting out there, Carter Johnson, just one of those like high school. But that was my dream of them doing kind of like a Mariners from a few years ago, where it was like 3 big impactful. They took Colt and Farmello and who the hell, Ty Pete. I kind of wish they would have done that, but I was very excited about it. And Slade's my guy, so I'm going to be locked into him. So thank you all for letting me have him.
Yeah, Tibbs is a fun one that I think people probably wouldn't describe as a fun one, because he's one of those players
Cole Calhoun 2.0.
Yeah, I know that swing comp doesn't make me feel good, but the offensive profile seems very different though.
He's a maximizer. This is a player who lifts and pulls. He has one of the higher zone swing rates on, of anyone in the class versus his chase rates. I think that his Seager score, it's a metric at Baseball Perspectives, would have been one of the highest in this entire class. The play discipline here is very, very good. So play discipline, lift and pull, very much a modern hitter. I think that maximizes what he has. The tools are not going to be the loudest, but it's a fun profile that, again, not many people probably would describe as fun, because he doesn't have maybe massive, massive upside. But I mean, some of those good Calhoun seasons were pretty good. So
yeah, I mean, we're joking around, but the chances of you getting someone who has as good of a career as Cole Calhoun with the 17th pick in this class is probably below 50%. So
yeah.
Okay. Eric Cross, over to you for the 18th pick.
All right. I am going to go with a prep arm here and go with a guy that I think has a chance of being the best pitcher in this draft class if we look back in several years. I'm going Caminiti. I went to 24, the Atlanta Braves. Love the landing spot there. And what I really get excited about with Caminiti, I mean, especially a lot of these prep arms, he's got a great fastball already. He's a big lefty with some projection, and he already has a really good feel for a changeup. It's an above average changeup, maybe even plus already. And he's just got good advanced feel for his command already. I mean, I'd love to see him really establish one of his breaking balls more. He's shown a decent feel for spin, but want to see like either the curve or the slider kind of take that step forward and become like the legitimate third offering for him. But just the fact that he's already got, good velocity, good feel for his changeup, and just advanced feel for his age. Like he was, one of the better command and control arms in the entire draft class, regardless of his prep or college. So he's got those building blocks there. And, Atlanta obviously has developed a lot of good arms over the years. So again, love that landing spot, and they can get that, maybe the slider to, be an above average offering or even the curve and really just add to that fastball changeup mix. I think he could really, really take off and maybe be a top 10 pitching prospect in the next year and a half or something like that. So I usually don't go a lot of prep arms, but I think, getting near pick 20 here, pick 18 overall, I'm willing to take a risk on the upside, because I think the upside is better than some of the other guys, the other bats I was looking at here. So Caminiti at 18.
I want to add that was the guy when I said I was pivoting. Like I have Caminiti in there. I think he's going to do the same Noble Meyer thing where everyone was like, "Yeah, Noble was fine in high school," and then all of a sudden, he's getting into top 50, 60 for a lot of people. Yep. I love the Caminiti pick. I should have probably played the upside to high school players right there. I'm just kind of messing around. I probably in my ranks represent Caminiti there, so I love that pick, Eric.
All right, we got our first prep pitcher off the board at 18. Just going to run through the picks here really quick before I make my pick. We had Travis Bazzana of the Guardians go first. Charlie Condon of the Rockies went second. J.J. Wetherholt of the Cardinals went third. Chase Burns of the Reds went fourth. Konnor Griffin of the Pirates went fifth. Jac Caglianone of the Royals went sixth. Braden Montgomery of the Red Sox went seventh. Bryce Rainer of the Tigers, 8th. Nick Kurtz of the A's, 9th. Theo Gillen of the Rays, 10th. Ryan Waldschmidt of the Diamondbacks, 11th. Jesse Roche took Cam Smith with the 12th pick. Hagen Smith at 13. I took Christian Moore of the Angels at 14. Seaver King of the Nationals, 15. Slade Caldwell of the D-backs, 16. And then James Tibbs of the Giants and Caminiti of the Braves at 18. I'm going to take... I've got two guys kind of back to back, like borderline top 100. Well, not borderline top 100, outside the top 100, but I think I'm gonna take Jurrangelo Cijntje. I'm probably butchering that. Does anyone know how to pronounce?
I think you're close. I think it's Cijntje.
Cijntje, yeah. I mean, this was probably the guy that I thought his stock got helped the most. I think it's like between him and Condon, honestly. But I just think the Mariners are the class of baseball when it comes to developing pitchers, and there's a lot to work with here with Cijntje. I thought he was kind of more of a floor than ceiling guy heading into the draft. And I'm just so kind of tantalized to see what Seattle can do with him. And, I'll take a number 3, number 4 starter in Seattle on my fantasy team. But if they can turn him into a bit more than that, that'd be great. Jurrangelo Cijntje, both-handed pitcher of the Mariners at 19th overall.
In Devil's Rejects, which is an open universe league, as soon as he was drafted by the Mariners, I added him immediately. I think the fit is.
I remember that. I got that alert. I mean, you added him and you added Caminiti. I think
I did.
After both guys got drafted. That was sharp.
The org fits. I really like both of them. I think those are two orgs that have been doing a really good job developing those types of arms. Yep. So I think their upside is a lot of fun. I'm going to take an arm because why not? I'll take an arm that I really like that I think fell in this draft due to injury, and that's Trey Yesavage. He was drafted 20th overall by Toronto Blue Jays. We should not be sleeping on him. He had a collapsed lung. He should fully recover. I'm not concerned. I do think that the stuff here is underrated. Really good secondaries with a gyro slider and a split change. I think both of them are conceivably above the plus pitches. I think where he really shines that people don't really fully appreciate is his fastball. He doesn't have the huge velocity of some of the top arms in this class, but he sits around 94 and it has really good shape. I think it's a pitch that is very much a modern offering that I would say is a plus pitch. I don't think many people put plus grades on it. But I think it's a fantastic pitch. I think with those three offerings, he has very good command, arguably one of the better command pitchers in this entire draft class. I think the stuff in command really aligns. And I think he has a very high floor as like a mid-rotation piece. And I think that there's a lot more upside there, especially, I think the Blue Jays have had mixed results developing arms, honestly. The fit's not perfect, but I do think he's going to be a very fast mover. And I wouldn't be shocked if once we get data with the minor league ball in Florida State League, which presuming he gets assigned there, I think his stock's going to even go up higher because that data is public. And I think that we're going to just see a lot of people jump on him. So I'm a fan. I think he's going to move fast. So at this point, he's actually weird to say for a pitcher, but I think he's a low risk option at this point. And I think there is really good upside. I've taken 3 pitchers. It hurts. It hurts inside. I will take a hitter that I actually think is a lower risk hitter that doesn't have massive upside. Carson Benge. He was drafted 19th overall by the New York Mets. I think he has one of the better hit tools in this entire college class. He has very, elite zone contact rates. He hits everything, fast, he hits velocity, breakers, off speed. He hits everything. I think the big question with him is power and where that ultimately will fall. I think is going to be average generally. I just don't think it's going to be massive power. And I think the risk with Benge is that the power ends up being borderline in game. If he ends up at like 15-ish home runs, even if he's hitting 280 or higher, I mean, that's solid, but that's not something you want to hold onto and draft early in first-year player drafts. I think there maybe is a bit more there. I really think he's a guy who will move quickly. I think the Mets have done a pretty good job actually of developing bats lately. So I kind of like Carson Benge. I think he's actually very similar in a lot of respects to James Tibbs. I think they're going to be sort of like that 1A, 1B in this range for a lot of drafts. So I also think Carson Benge has a gorgeous swing. So I'm chasing the swing too. So that's my last pick. Not a sexy one. I started sexy, ended boring, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, Benji was the guy I was between there when I took Cijntje 19th, but I didn't have a pitcher yet. And if I didn't take Cijntje there, I would not have gotten a pitcher. So with my final pick, I'm going to take Kellon Lindsey of the Dodgers. And it's weird because I was watching the draft in the office with the sound on, writing up the picks as they were happening. And I heard Harold Reynolds throw out a Trey Turner comp on Lindsey. And I actually had thought of that comp as like a just complete pie in the sky, like 100th percentile outcome comp for Lindsey when I was digging in on him. So that was fitting that Harold Reynolds threw it out as just kind of like a who he reminds him of comp. But that's kind of the idea with Lindsey. I mean, he might not be able to hit for power. We'll see. But he's got really good speed. I think he's going to provide, if he's at second base, I think he will provide significant value. There's maybe a chance he could do shortstop or center field, but TBD on the power with Lindsey, but prep athlete with big time speed and pretty good hit tool. So obviously these are all rolls of the dice, but I like the upside with Lindsey.
Yeah, that's a fun pick, and obviously the Dodgers are one of the best, so it's a great landing spot for him. My last pick here, pick 23. I mean, I knew this guy was going to fall. I know I am easily the highest on this guy by a country mile. I have him ranked much higher than this, but played the board, and I'm taking Vance Honeycutt with the 23rd pick here. There is one massive red flag with Honeycutt, and it's the hit tool. Contact skills need work and needs to cut down the swing and miss. I mean, he struck out 27.5% of the time this year with North Carolina, and that's not good for a first round pick, one of the top collegiate bats in the class. But look at the rest of the profile. It's phenomenal. It's plus power. It's plus speed. He's a phenomenal defender, premium athlete. And I already loved Honeycutt. I'm a North Carolina guy too. I watch a lot of North Carolina games. I loved Mac Horvath in last year's draft class. So I already loved him, but him landing in Baltimore, I'm like, all right, if anybody can fix Vance Honeycutt's, hit tool and just get him to sniff a 50 grade hit tool, and it might be a tall task, absolutely. But if you're in this part of your draft, I mean, if we're talking pure upside, if they do help him, get to be at least a 250-ish hitter, I mean, you're talking well over 20 home runs and 20 steal potential there. So go with, top 5 upside in this class. That might sound crazy to say, but if it clicks, if they fix him, that hit tool, the upside is definitely among the best in this class. So at this point in your draft, if you got to pick around 20, I would be fine taking, a guy like Vance Honeycutt because the upside is massive. And I'm just crossing my fingers that Baltimore can help that hit tool a little bit.
All right. Welsh, why don't you make your pick and just give us any final thoughts on the exercise after you make your picks? I know you got to get out of here.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm good. I mean, I will say this. Here's an interesting thing that's happened. Everyone above the guy I'm about to take has gone. And the guys pretty much outside of maybe like 2 have been in this top 24. So, I mean, we're on kind of the same core here. The guys may adjust a little bit. I'm going to go with some upside. This is a guy that I liked a couple months ago, and I talked about maybe sneaking into the first round, and then all of a sudden he went into the teens. He was a guy the last year that really many saw as a first round pick. I'm going to go with PJ Morlando. And I think there's just massive offensive bat upside. I don't love the Marlins. I don't really necessarily love their development in general. Overall ballpark factors have been relatively decent. They're just a tiny bit above average. But again, my big play here is the bat on Morlando. I think it was last season he had won that high school home run derby, yet his power hasn't necessarily gotten to translate in game. But I think, this is a 30+ home run potential player. If the batting average stays up, I just love betting on, and there's not a lot of high school, not a lot of crazy high school bets in 2 rounds. I mean, how many high school guys have we really actually taken? So I'm going to go with PJ Morlando. And on the exercise, this is fantastic. I mean, this is what you want in, you want to hear some of these other thoughts. You want to hear when, we each can find like hearing Jesse say Chase Burns, at the top. I'm like, okay, good. I'm not the insane person. I've got him in the top 5. You want to play some of this, and everybody listening, there's probably, I'd say there's a decent chance 15% to 20% attrition rate to maybe more if we were to do this exercise in 6 months. If we were to do this and start talking about the players, there are going to be guys we're going to laugh at that we put in here. Slade Caldwell, what a dummy Welsh is. They're going to have those type of things that can happen. So it's a very early process. We also are going to be presented with maybe less information than years before, because before I would be someone that was lucky that, hey, high school guys, college guys, I saw Wyatt Langford's pro debut. I was at Bryce Eldridge's pro debut. I was at a handful of pro debuts, but guess what? Rookie ball ends next week. So we're not going to, and they're going to be going and playing these tricky league back games that are not tracked and not statted. So there's potential, some production off the board that people are going to have as data. And there might be guys that they just don't really have to leave there, because that also takes roster moves. So we might be presented with less data or less sample size than we've had before. So it's really good for us to dig in super deep. And then lastly, I want to find an experiment to find this, this Bazzana versus Condon thing, because we might have to truly not talk. And I'm saying this for me, I'm the Bazzana guy. We might not have to talk about them as hey, we're all kind of think they're good when everybody else has Condon. But I want to add one thing. This year, the number 1 team who has hit the most homers for left-handed batters, the stadium that has given up the most homers to left-handed batters, the Guardians. The Guardians had the number 1 ballpark factor for homers in 2024 after they opened up that little panel. Stephen Kwan's hitting them. That's one other nice little thing, having the number 1 left-handed bat factor for left-handed hitters to put Travis Bazzana in, regardless of those Pac-12 issues. That's my last little argument to Bazzana, something I didn't get to add. But I think the experiment's great, and maybe this really won't be Bazzana in Condon at the end of the day.
All right, Jesse, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think generally, don't listen to everyone that says this draft class is poor. From a real life perspective, I can see it being poor. But for fantasy, it's pretty good. It's fun. It's not terrible. I think that there is legit upside at the top. In some classes, we aren't ranking players in the top 10 right away. I personally think both Condon and Bazzana are top 10 picks, or top 10 overall for Dynasty. And part of that is attrition, players graduating, and the current state of minor leagues. But I think it's not a terrible class. I think that there's going to be value, and like Chris said, it's going to look a lot different in 6 months. When everyone fully revisits this in December and January, puts out updated rankings after the season, it's going to look a lot different. But Chris also makes another good point in that there will be less data and information. And less data and information is, remember 2020 when we had such little information and we were trying to work with what we could get? I'm a little bit concerned with how that's going to impact what kind of debuts we see for these draft class. I'm hoping that some of these top preps will go to single A and we'll actually see a little bit of them in single A. I really want to see some Theo Gillen in Charleston. Come on down, bud. I'm excited to see your debut. But I think it's a fun one. Every single time we have an influx of players, I get really excited. Every single time.
Yeah, it'll be really telling which of the high schoolers go to single A. And then it's like, if only a handful go there and then only a handful of them perform well there, does that just mean that the guys that perform well at single A are the top high school guys in the class? And then nice thing about it being the college bat heavy class is we will get a sample size of most of the guys that went, like just looking, we got in the top 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 college hitters in the top 10 because of all the pitching.
I took 3 non-college hitters, so I'm sorry. I blew things up there.
But I mean, I think a lot of, like, at least for my top 12 is 9 college hitters. So like, I think that'll be nice to at least get a pro sample on a lot of these guys. Eric, did you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a very college heavy draft class. I mean, I look at my top 20. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 high school guys overall in my top 20. So yeah, very college heavy class. And not a lot of those high upside guys. Oh, there are some in there, obviously. The Bryce Rainers of the world, the Theo Gillens. But yeah, it's always fun to do this. Like right now, I think we've done this last couple of years where we go on your show here, James, right after the draft, and we'll do it again on Toolshed in the off season, October, November, whatever it may be, once the dust is settled from this season, just to see what the differences have been. Because yeah, there's always gonna be a big change. Like look at Colt Emerson was a guy that was probably taken. If we did a mock draft, I'd love to go back and see where he was taken in the mock draft right after the draft last year, and then where he was taken in the offseason one. It was probably a massive jump up to the offseason. So there's always those guys that jump way up, and yes, it'll be fun to see what everybody has for rankings in about 3-4 months.
And there's a lot of fun high schoolers that could pop.
Yeah,
there are. Right off this top 24, there's a lot of them for me. There's some college bats that I think are sneaky, a little underrated, that had huge college seasons, have great data, but like someone like a Blake Burke, who I really love. Someone like that is going to be underrated, I think, in first-year player drafts for a variety of reasons. First base only, you're going to not see great reviews for him because he's a first baseman. But, I mean, dude mashes. So it's a fun class in a lot of ways. I do agree with James. It's not last year's class. Don't go into this thinking we're going to have that type of draft class again. It's, there's just once every, it seems like 5 to 6 years, we have a really great class. And then it just regresses again. 2019 is the big standout one, I think, for me in my head. But I like it. I think it'll be fun. I'm so excited to see these debuts. The signing deadline's not until August 2nd this year, I believe, or August 1st. So the dust isn't going to settle. And you know what? There conceivably may be additions to this class that are exciting. I mean, who knows? We might see Sasaki conceivably.
Yeah. I mean, since you brought him up, if Roki Sasaki comes over, is he first on your guys' boards?
Yes.
Yeah.
Eric, yeah. I think he would be first for me as well. I like Condon a lot, but I don't like Condon as much, even with the Coors thing, as I liked Wyatt Langford and Dylan Cruz last year personally. And then obviously fell out of love a bit with Cruz, but Sasaki coming over, I think that would just be a Big Ten deal for first year player drafts. But really appreciate both you guys helping out with this. I think it's been a lot of fun. It's been helpful for me because I can see sort of more of where the consensus is on these guys, and we can figure out which guys we're actually higher on than the pack, that type of thing. So Really appreciate that. So our thanks to Chris Welsh, who had to jump off early, and Eric Cross and Jesse Roach. This has been the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by PickSix, the new fantasy game from DraftKings. Use code RWPicks for $50 in PickSix credits with a $5 deposit.